Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Fun English Channel, your go-to podcast for improving your English skills in practical and fun ways. I'm John, your host, and as always, I'm joined by the brilliant Sarah.
Everyone, thanks for tuning in today. We have an exciting and essential topic to discuss, one that I know many of you will find incredibly helpful.
That's right, Sarah. Today we're talking about how to train your brain to think in English. This is a game-changing skill for anyone learning English, and it's a topic we get asked about all the time.
Absolutely, John. Thinking in English is one of those things that can take your fluency to the next level. But it's also something that feels challenging at first. Many learners don't know where to start or how to make it a natural part of their lives.
Exactly. And that's why we're dedicating today's episode to breaking it all down, why it's important, the challenges you might face, and of course, practical tips to help you get started.
So whether you're commuting, relaxing at home, or out for a walk, grab your headphones and join us as we dive into this fascinating topic.
Before we get into the how, let's start with the why. Sarah, why do you think thinking in English is such a crucial skill for language learners?
Great question, John. For me, thinking in English is the bridge between learning the language and actually using it in real life. When you think in English, you're no longer relying on your native language as a crutch. This means you don't have to mentally translate everything before speaking, which makes communication much faster and smoother.
Exactly. Translating in your head can be such a bottleneck. Not only does it slow you down, but it also increases the chances of making mistakes. Languages don't always translate directly, so trying to think in your native language first can lead to awkward or incorrect sentences.
That's a great point, John, and it's not just about speed or accuracy, it's also about confidence. When you're able to think directly in English, you start feeling more fluent. You're not second-guessing yourself as much, which helps you speak with more ease and assurance.
Totally agree. And let's not forget the cultural aspect. Language isn't just about words. It's about how people think and express themselves. By thinking in English, you start to adopt those cultural nuances and patterns that make your communication more natural.
Exactly, and I think one of the most underrated benefits is how it helps with listening. When your brain is trained to process English directly, you can understand conversations, movies, or podcasts more quickly because you're not mentally translating everything you hear.
That's such a good point. So if you're listening to this and thinking, wow, I want to think in English, but I don't know where to start, don't worry. We're going to guide you through the process step by step.
Now, John, let's address some of the challenges people face when trying to think in English. What do you think is the most common one?
I'd say the biggest challenge is vocabulary. If you don't have enough words in your mental toolbox, it's hard to form thoughts in English. When learners encounter a word they don't know, they often switch back to their native language.
Exactly. And another common challenge is the habit of defaulting to your first language. It's natural. Our brains are wired to use what's most familiar. Breaking that habit takes time and intentional effort.
Another challenge is fear. I've noticed that many learners hesitate to think or speak in English because they're afraid of making mistakes. But here's the thing, mistakes are part of the process.
That's so true, John. No one starts out perfect. Even native speakers make mistakes. The key is to embrace those mistakes as learning opportunities.
Exactly. And one more thing. People often expect results too quickly. Training your brain to think in English is like building a muscle. It takes consistent practice over time, but the results are so worth it.
All right, let's get into the practical steps. John, what's your favorite technique for helping learners start thinking in English?
I love the self-narration technique. Throughout your day, try describing what you're doing in English. For example, if you're cooking, think, I'm chopping vegetables. Now I'm boiling water. It's simple, but incredibly effective.
That's a fantastic tip, John. I also recommend creating an inner monologue. If you're making a decision, think it through in English. For instance, should I wear the blue shirt or the red one today?
Another great tip is journaling. Write down your thoughts, plans, or even what you did that day in English. It helps reinforce thinking in the language while also improving your writing skills.
And don't forget immersion. Surround yourself with English as much as possible. Change your phone settings to English, listen to English podcasts like this one, and watch TV shows or movies in English. As always,
Yes, immersion is key. And for those who like challenges, try labeling objects in your home with sticky notes in English. Every time you see the object, think about its name in English.
that's a fun idea. Another tip is speaking with friends or family members who are also learning English. Even short conversations can help train your brain to think in English.
Sarah, let's talk about consistency. How can learners make thinking in English a daily habit?
The key is to start small and build gradually. Commit to spending just 5 minutes a day thinking in English. Then, gradually increase the time.
That's great advice, and it's important to integrate English into your routine. For example, think in English while you're commuting, exercising, or even brushing your teeth.
Exactly. The goal is to make English a natural part of your life, not just something you study.
And don't forget to celebrate your progress. Recognize the small wins, like forming a sentence in English without thinking about it too much.
All right, listeners, it's challenge time. Here's what we want you to do. For the next 7 days, spend at least 15 minutes a day thinking in English.
And don't just stop there. Write to us about your experience. Let us know what worked for you, what didn't, and any creative techniques you've discovered.
One technique I find incredibly helpful is using visual cues. For instance, when you see a car, think of the word car instead of your native language equivalent. Expand on it. It's a red car. It's driving fast. Associating visuals with English words makes it stick better.
Great point. And this works with emotions too. If you're feeling happy, think, I'm happy, and then ask yourself why in English. Visuals and emotions can serve as powerful triggers for English thinking. Sarah, let's not forget the role of music in training your brain. Listening to English songs and trying to understand the lyrics is such a fun and effective way to think in English.
Absolutely. And don't just listen, singing along. Even if you don't hit the right notes, you're reinforcing English sounds, sentence structures, and vocabulary. One advanced technique is shadowing. This means listening to someone speak in English and repeating what they say as closely as possible in real time. It's great for improving pronunciation and thinking speed.
Yes, shadowing mimics real-life conversations. It forces your brain to process English quickly, just like native speakers do. Learning should be fun, right? Turn thinking in English into a game. For example, challenge yourself to describe 5 things you see in English when you're out walking.
I love that. You can also play word association games. Start with a word like apple and think of related words in English: fruit, red, sweet. It's a fun way to train your brain. Here's a simple yet powerful habit. Practice imaginary conversations in English. Pretend you're ordering coffee or talking to a friend. The more you practice these scenarios, the easier they'll be in real life.
That's brilliant. You can even rehearse presentations or arguments in English to simulate thinking on your feet. Mindful listening is key to thinking in English. When you listen to conversations, focus on how words are used, the sentence flow and pronunciation.
Exactly. Pay attention to the rhythm and tone of the speaker. Mimic it in your head or out loud when possible. This builds both your comprehension and confidence. Flashcards aren't just for memorization. Use them to create short stories or sentences in your mind. For example, if the flashcard says train, think, I took the train to work this morning.
Yes, the goal is to connect words to real-life situations, not just isolated meanings. Here's another tip. When watching English TV shows or movies, pause and think about how you describe a scene or guess what the characters might say next.
That's such a good exercise. It helps you predict language patterns and encourages creative thinking in English. Combine physical activities with English thinking. For example, if you're jogging, describe your route in English. I'm running past a park. There's a bench. The sky is cloudy.
That's a clever way to link movement and language, which makes learning more engaging and memorable. Role-playing is fantastic for practicing English thinking. Imagine you're at a store, a job interview, or even traveling. Think through what you'd say in English.
Exactly. And if you have a language partner, act out these scenarios together to make it even more realistic. Set reminders on your phone to spend a few minutes thinking in English. Label them with simple prompts like describe your day or plan tomorrow in English. Be present.
That's such a practical tip. These little reminders can help you stay consistent without feeling overwhelmed.
Visualizing scenarios can help you think in English. For example, imagine walking through a park. Think about the words you'd use: trees, birds, people jogging. Create a vivid picture in your mind and describe it in English.
Yes, visualization helps you engage multiple parts of your brain, making the learning process more immersive.
Thinking backwards is another fun exercise. Start with a result and think about how you'd explain it in English. For example, if your room is clean, think, I cleaned my room this morning because it was messy.
That's a creative way to practice connecting ideas and forming complex sentences.
Try making decisions in English, no matter how small. If you're choosing between tea or coffee, think, should I have tea or coffee today?
Exactly. The more you make English a part of your everyday life, the more natural it becomes.
End your day by journaling what you're grateful for in English. It's a simple practice that helps you focus on positive thoughts while reinforcing the language.
Wow, Sarah, I think we've covered every angle of training your brain to think in English today.
We sure have, John. To all our listeners, remember, this is a journey, not a sprint. Incorporate these tips into your daily life, and you'll see progress over time.
Thank you all for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with anyone who might find it helpful.
Thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. Remember to follow us for more episodes on improving your English skills. Thank you for this.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot, and it helps me create more great content for you. See you in the next video.